B. Free trade versus protectionism. A comprehensive analysis. Introduction. The debate between free trade and protectionism is one of the oldest and most persistent in the history of economic thought. These two contrasting ideologies have shaped trade policies across centuries, influencing the structure of global commerce and international relations. While free trade advocates for the unrestricted flow of goods and services across borders, protectionism argues for safeguarding domestic industries from foreign competition through tariffs, quotas, and other regulatory barriers. This essay delves into the theoretical foundations, historical evolution, economic implications, and contemporary relevance of both free trade and protectionism. It aims to present a balanced evaluation of both paradigms in the context of global economic development, regional integration, and geopolitical tensions. Theoretical foundations. Free trade. Free trade is rooted in classical economic theory, particularly the works of Adam Smith and David Ricardo. Smith's concept of the invisible hand and Ricardo's theory of comparative advantage laid the foundation for modern trade liberalization. According to Ricardo, even if one nation is more efficient in producing all goods, it can still benefit from trade by specializing in the production of goods, for which it has the greatest relative efficiency. Key principles of free trade include comparative advantage. Nations should specialize in goods they can produce more efficiently relative to others. Consumer benefit. Free trade leads to lower prices, more choices, and higher quality. Efficient resource allocation. Resources are directed to sectors with the most productive potential. Economic growth. Open markets encourage innovation, investment, and competition. Protectionism. Protectionism stems from mercantilist ideas, which dominated European trade policy from the 16th to 18th centuries. Mercantilism promoted national economic self-sufficiency and the accumulation of wealth through trade surpluses. Modern protectionist arguments are often rooted in strategic trade theory and infant industry protection. Key arguments for protectionism include national security. Essential industries must be protected from foreign control. Infant industry argument. Emerging sectors may require temporary protection to become competitive. Job preservation. Shielding domestic industries from cheaper imports helps preserve employment. Trade deficits. Limiting imports can reduce trade imbalances. Fair trade. Protecting domestic firms from unfair foreign competition or subsidies. Historical perspectives. 19th century. The rise of free trade. In the 19th century, Britain led the move toward free trade with the repeal of the Corn Laws in 1846. The shift marked the beginning of liberal trade in Europe and spurred global economic integration through imperial networks and maritime trade. Interwar period. Protectionism resurfaces. The Great Depression of the 1930s saw a resurgence of protectionism. The U.S. Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act 1930 triggered a global wave of retaliatory tariffs, deepening the depression and shrinking world trade by over 60%. This era underscored the dangers of isolationist policies, post-WUT institutionalizing free trade. After World War II, the U.S. and its allies established the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade GATT in 1947, which eventually led to the creation of the World Trade Organization, WTO, in 1995. These institutions aim to reduce trade barriers and resolve disputes peacefully, fostering an era of globalization and economic interdependence. Economic implications. Benefits of free trade. Efficiency and specialization. Nations can allocate resources based on comparative advantage, lower prices, and consumer choice. Consumers enjoy affordable and diverse products. Increased innovation. Exposure to global markets encourages firms to innovate. Economic growth. Trade liberalization is often linked with higher GDP growth rates. Peace and cooperation. Economic interdependence can reduce the risk of conflict. Drawbacks of free trade. Deindustrialization. Advanced economies may lose manufacturing sectors to cheaper foreign competitors. Job displacement. Workers in declining industries face unemployment and wage pressure. Inequality. Gains from trade may be unevenly distributed within and between countries. Environmental concerns. Global supply chains can exacerbate environmental degradation. Advantages of protectionism. Domestic industry support protects jobs and firms from external competition. Strategic interests maintains national control over key industries, e.g. food, defense. Balanced trade helps prevent persistent trade deficits. And currency manipulation. Policy autonomy. Governments can shape their own industrial and economic strategies. Disadvantages of protectionism. Higher prices. Tariffs raise costs for consumers and producers. Inefficiency. Domestic industries may lack incentives to innovate or improve productivity. Retaliation risk. Protectionist policies often lead to trade wars. Global isolation can hinder international cooperation and investment. Contemporary trade debates. Globalization backlash. The 21st century has seen growing discontent with globalization. Populist movements in the U.S. and Europe have criticized free trade for eroding manufacturing, jobs, and fostering inequality. Brexit, the U.S.-China trade war, and rising nationalism reflect this backlash. U.S.-China trade war. Beginning in 2018, the U.S. imposed tariffs on Chinese goods to address trade imbalances and alleged unfair practices. China retaliated with tariffs on American exports. This trade war disrupted global supply chains, impacted markets, and prompted debates on reshoring and strategic autonomy. COVID-19 and trade resilience. The pandemic exposed vulnerabilities in global supply chains, leading many countries to reconsider overdependence on international trade. Calls for economic resilience, regional integration, and reshoring have strengthened protectionist sentiment. The European Union and managed trade. The EU represents a hybrid model with free trade among member states and common external tariffs. It balances liberal trade principles with social protections, environmental standards, and industrial policy, offering a potential third path between unregulated free trade and aggressive protectionism. Case studies. South Korea and infant industry protection. South Korea's post-war development illustrates effective use of protectionism. The government protected and subsidized key industries e.g., steel, automobiles, until they became globally competitive. Once matured, these industries competed internationally without state support. Latin America, an import substitution, industrialization, ISI. In the mid-20th century, Latin American countries adopted ISI policies to reduce dependency on imports. While initially successful, the long-term result was inefficiency, over-reliance on state support, and debt crises due to protected, uncompetitive industries. The path forward. Rethinking trade policy. Rather than choosing between free trade and protectionism, many economists now advocate for smart trade policy. Strategic openness. Maintain openness while safeguarding critical sectors. Fair trade rules address labor, environmental, and subsidy issues multilaterally. Worker adjustment programs help displaced workers. Transition with retraining and social support. Sustainable trade align trade with climate and social goals. Trade policy must navigate a complex landscape of economic efficiency, social justice, and national security. In an interconnected world, unilateral protectionism may be as harmful as unregulated globalization. Conclusion. The tension between free trade and protectionism is a reflection of broader concerns over economic justice, sovereignty, and security. While free trade promotes efficiency, innovation, and growth, it can exacerbate inequality and social dislocation. Protectionism can shield vulnerable sectors and preserve sovereignty, but at the cost of efficiency and cooperation. In the modern global economy, the binary between free trade and protectionism is giving way to a nuanced approach that seeks to combine openness with resilience and globalization with national interest. The challenge for policymakers is not to reject one side entirely, but to manage trade in ways that are inclusive, fair, and sustainable for all. Let me know if you'd like this restructured for a specific academic format, APA, MLA, etc., or if you want a version rewritten from a biblical or theological perspective.